Good morning, sports diehards. Welcome to the 30th edition of the Living Room podcast, a diehard sports radio production. I'm your host, Steve Itzkowitz. He is Jack Angelo. We are here to kick off what is going to be months upon months of NFL coverage. The National Football League is back. We are less than a week away from teams entering training camp and shaping who's going to be on the 53-man rosters and the 11-man practice squads as the season fast approaches. We're going to go through today the major storylines for the NFL 2026 season coming up. We're also going to point out teams in the AFC and the NFC we think will take a big step forward, and teams in the AFC and NFC we think will take a big step back this season. And then we're going to go team by team over the next several shows, and we're going to pose the question that each team must answer for this 2026 season. I hypothesize as to what that answer will be based on the question that we have about that team. In the meantime, let's welcome back Jack Angelo to the program. Jack, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. How are you out there in LA or Orange County these days?
Doing great. I was hanging out last night with a nice view of the beach at our buddy Norm's friend Stu's house playing blackjack. And I won a round of blackjack, collecting more chips than anybody else, but there was no cash involved, unfortunately. So I didn't walk away with more money than I came with, but it was a good feeling to know that since I was first time there with their annual card playing event that they run, alternating houses, that I walked away a winner. And it was very
Nice.
nice. We did the bonfire in the back. We were telling stories, kind of bedtime stories amongst men. It was all guys, so perfect guys evening in. A great evening, a wonderful evening, but in a very simplistic way. The simple things in life are sometimes the best things in life, and that's what last night was about. What about you? What did you get into this past week?
Oh, I worked at the bar as usual last night. Kind of a dead sports night. There was no Yankee game on. Soccer's pretty much over except for today. So not much going on at the bar last night. So it was kind of a dead night. So came home, got some rest, have my coffee, and I'm ready to go.
All right, well, then let's get into it. Let's waste no further time and talk about the 2026 NFL season that's coming up here. It is going fast thanks to the World Cup. And usually the dog days of summer are not this exciting, but they have been exciting with the World Cup, with the NBA fanatics happening in New York City. And Adam Silver said some very interesting things about Caitlin Clark and the NBA in general, the Kawhi Leonard investigation and whatnot. We're not going to have much time for those things today, but that means the NFL season is that much closer, and the dog days are that much closer to being over of the summer. And there's a lot of storylines coming into this 2026 NFL season. Which storyline coming in interests you the most?
Um, Interests me the most. New coaches and new places, I guess. I'm taking that across the board. Yes, that has something to do with the fact that my New York Giants have a new coach, um, perhaps a Hall of Fame bound coach one day. But I think it's going to be interesting across the league when you have, Minter down in Baltimore, when, you have new coaches in Pittsburgh with Mike McCarthy. You have, like I said, Minter. You have Halfley down in Miami. Um, Las Vegas, new head coach. Arizona, new head
Yeah,
coach.
coming over from the world champion Seattle Seahawks.
Right in Las Vegas. Arizona gets the younger LaFleur out there, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two teams that have new head coaches, but
Well, there were a lot of them. How many teams were there? There were 10
and I
head
think so.
coaches. Yeah, I think it was a record. Like usually
Buffalo, Buffalo,
Buffalo
the new head
with
coach.
Joe Brady dispatching Sean McDermott in that ridiculous press conference that Terry Bragula and Brandon Beane ran after the fact.
Yep,
Very good moment for the Bills.
yep. So the new coaches, the new faces, and new places is really the big story for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for me, just to mix things up here, on one hand, the coaching carousel this NFL offseason was wide, it was varied, it was unpredictable, it was very, very exciting. For me, it's who got traded where. AJ Brown going from the Eagles to the Patriots. Obviously, the huge one, Myles Garrett going from Cleveland to the Rams. I'm trying to think of some of the other trades that happened as well. And some of the contracts that were handed out. Will Anderson, the highest paid non-defensive player or non-quarterback in the league. I believe he got a record deal as far as that goes. But yeah, it's certain players trading places. And at the top of the list would be Myles Garrett and AJ Brown. I think aside from the coaching carousel of coach, that was very fascinating for me. We kind of saw the AJ Brown trade happening.
Yep.
No one saw the Myles Garrett trade happening. I mean, that literally came out of left field, a bat out of hell, whatever phrase you want to apply to it. That one was a blockbuster of blockbuster. And, as a 49er fan, I wasn't happy about it, but certainly makes for a very interesting NFL offseason on shows like these where we could discuss trades like that with a guy involving Myles Garrett, who some people would argue is the best overall player in the league, who is not a quarterback, and I might have to agree with that.
Well, he's in the discussion if he's not.
Yeah. There is no doubt. It's the best defensive player out there. He's a modern day Lawrence Taylor that I know you could appreciate. Let me ask you this in regards to the head coaches, especially the first-time head coaches, the Halfleys, the Minters, the Bradys. Amongst those three guys, and and Kevin Stefanski over in Atlanta. I think that's
in Atlanta. Yeah. Your guy Saleh in Tennessee.
Brian, your old boy Robert Saleh joining forces with Brian Dable in Tennessee. So let's actually go through. This is an interesting exercise you just gave me. Going through this kind of came to my head. First-time head coaches, retread head coaches. Amongst the first-time head coaches, Jeff Hafley, Jesse Minter, Joe Brady, which one do you think is going to be the most successful the soonest, and why?
Probably Jesse Minter, because I think that division is very winnable. I think Pittsburgh's going to take a step back. Cleveland also has a new head coach with Tom Monken.
Tom Monken, another first time.
So I think we've hit all the teams that have new head coaches now. I think that division's very winnable. Cleveland doesn't have a quarterback. Pittsburgh also doesn't have a quarterback. Since it's going to come down to Cincinnati and Baltimore. And at the end of the day, I like Baltimore's defense more than I like Cincinnati's defense, even though I like Cincinnati's offense better. I think he's been put in a better position to win immediately. He'll have that defense flying and playing at a high level down there in Baltimore. I think it's a rejuvenation for some of those players. And obviously, as a New York Giants fan, no disrespect to John Harbaugh because he's one of the best, but sometimes it's just time for a new voice. Sometimes the voice runs its course. Tom Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls with New York, and he was let go. So sometimes it's just time.
But Jimmy Johnson.
That had a little bit to do with from the owner because he brought in his Arkansas Razorback buddy Barry Switzer, and then it all went.
Talk about a gatekeeper gone bad. From Jimmy Johnson to Barry frickin' Switzer, but
Barry did win it. He won the last chip for the Cowboys, actually. But
Jimmy Johnson's team, with all due respect,
it was Jimmy Johnson's team. But I think Jesse Minter is set up the best. Who are the 3 coaches you named?
Well, I also forgot about Kubiak. So you have Jesse Minter, you have Jeff Hafley down in Miami. I think. Yep. That's a rebuilding project down there. I think he's going to have time. I don't think they're expecting much in year number 1, maybe not even year number 2. It's going to depend upon their draft position next year to get the quarterback of the future, since I don't think Ewers down in Miami or Malik Willis are going to be the long-term solutions for Miami. But you have Jeff Hafley, Jesse Minter, Tom Monken in Cleveland, Clint Kubiak in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
And Joe Brady in Buffalo. Joe Brady's in an interesting situation with the New England Patriots having an interesting offseason. Obviously, the The Mike Vrabel situation with Diana Rossini is a bit of a distraction surrounding the team. I'm not sure how well they've addressed that. Robert Kraft came out the other day and said that he hopes Mike Vrabel coaches the Patriots for a long time to come, that he's completely behind them. The public vote of confidence, without saying a vote of confidence. But I got to imagine that's true because Kraft has his own inequities off the field. Lord knows.
I think Joe Brady will
I
do a
think Joe
good job
Brady's
up there.
going to
He's an
do it. I
offensive
think he could
genius.
win the division in the AFC East from New England, because New England's schedule is going to be a lot tougher this coming season.
Well, I'm going to touch on New England late when we get to a different segment. It might surprise you what I have to say about New England. Yep.
Well, then maybe we'll go the AFC East today, and we'll go against the jet stream, go AFC East to West, and then NFC East to West in terms of our team.
So, but Minter would be my guy. What about yourself?
I'd have to agree with Minter. Obviously, Cincinnati's intriguing because of Joe Burrow, and they did trade for Dexter Lawrence, an old friend of yours, who, if he's healthy, could have a major impact on that defense along with the draft. I think Cincinnati's defense is bound to get better. That said, where they're beginning from to get better isn't much.
Not a high bar to clear.
It can't get much worse than what it's been in Cincinnati the last couple of seasons or before. Lou, what's his name?
Lou Anarumo.
Lou Anarumo. I wanted to say Ferragamo, but I knew that wasn't right. Vince Ferragamo, Lou Anarumo left there, but their defense hasn't gotten much better, so we know it wasn't him that was the reason for that. But I digress. Yeah, I would say Baltimore with Jesse Minter. He's got the best quarterback, obviously, as long as Lamar Jackson is healthy, which wasn't the case last year. Derrick Henry is going to come in and is going to run people over like he usually does. And I don't know about the receiving core in Baltimore. Your point is well taken about Cincinnati's offense possibly being more dynamic and more productive than Baltimore's offense. But Baltimore does have the best quarterback in the division, and some people would say it's Burrow, and that's, you could make that argument, but Burrow's big bugaboo is health and being available. Obviously, that's going to be key for Cincinnati. They have better receivers with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and company, and the defense should be improved. But I think from top to bottom, Baltimore right now. So I would say Jesse Minter has an edge, and then I would put Joe Brady after him with Buffalo, with a chance for Buffalo to potentially win the division this year in the AFC East. What about a retread head coach? Kevin Stefanski, John Harbaugh, Mike McCarthy. I'm trying to think of who else. Robert Saleh in Tennessee. Which one of those coaches do you think will have the most successful season amongst retread or returning head coaches?
If I sound like a homer, I don't really care. It's going to be John Harbaugh. The New York Giants won 4 games last year. They were in a position to win 9. They had inexplicable double-digit blown leads in the fourth quarter against good teams. You know, Denver, Detroit, the Bears. Those are just to name a few of the games they blew. So they were in a position to win 9 games last year. I think that comes back to coaching. It might come back a little bit to health. I think there's finally, as has been said around here a lot, there's an adult in the room now. John Harbaugh knows how to win. There is talent on this New York Giants football team. I truly believe Jackson Dart, second-year quarterback of the Giants, will make a leap this year. But I think Harbaugh, of the several you just named, I'll give a slightly behind with Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta. I think Atlanta has some good pieces. I think Atlanta's division stinks. I'm not a fan of Tampa, Carolina, or New Orleans. So that is a very winnable division in the NFC South. So I think he'll do very well down there. Up in Pittsburgh, look, he's a quarterback whisperer. Well, which quarterback is he going to be whispering to? So,
well, Aaron Rodgers this season, and what will be season as an NFL quarterback.
You know, I'm not completely sold on Aaron Rodgers. You know, I mean, I think they'll be just good enough to not get anything done in the playoffs again. But that's just me with Pittsburgh. I'm very lukewarm on Pittsburgh. And who was the other one you mentioned?
Let's
Oh,
see.
Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh over
I
in
think
Tennessee.
Robert Saleh will make an improvement in Tennessee, but the thing with Tennessee is, aside from Cam Ward, they're pretty much building from the studs. They had to tear the entire organization down. They don't have a hell of a lot of talent. They didn't have it. They have more now. Um, Most of them are ex
Yeah,
New
they
York.
got Carno Lake, number 4 in the draft, wide receiver to give Cam Ward a nice target to throw to. So the
Yeah,
passing theoretically should be a.
yeah, but I think they're just starting to build. I don't think this is Tennessee's year. I think they'll be more competitive, but I don't think this is a year that they take a quantum leap. I still think they're a 6 or 7 win team at most, if not less. In fact, if you were to give me an over under on Tennessee and you set it at 6.5, I would probably take the under, just because they had so many holes to fill. It's impossible to do that all in one off season.
Yeah, I would agree. With Tennessee, it's a little bit more long term, although there is a worst to first team usually in the NFL every single season in each conference. And I might ask you about that actually. Which team do you think could be a worst to first story? I'm not sure it'll be Tennessee, but I think they're going in the right direction. I'm pretty sure Robert Saleh will. He wasn't a bad head coach with the Jets. When they fired him, they had a winning record with the Jets. It's just that's what the Jets do. They are a coach killer. They are a quarterback killer. Lord
Well,
knows.
he didn't
So,
get along with
he
Aaron
was a
Rodgers.
decent head
So
coach.
that was he was let go because him and Aaron Rodgers didn't mesh.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, it is what it is. And theoretically, Mark McCarthy will get along with Aaron Rodgers because they have a prior pre-existing relationship from their Green Bay days where they won a Super Bowl together. So they should be able to stomach each other somewhat. For me, I think the retread head coach that has the chance to be the most successful this season amongst the head coaches would be John Harbaugh. Assuming the health of Jackson Dart, assuming the help of Ken Scatterboo, the defense looks loaded on every single level with the Giants defense. Obviously, they had an incredible draft, addressing the offensive line, addressing the defensive line with Arvell Reese and company. And, Tremaine Edwards coming in there as a linebacker is going to be really, really good. And of course, you have Brian Burns. I don't know. Well, what about Kayvon Thibodeau? You've been kind of speculating on the possibility of him getting traded. Obviously, they already dispatched Sexy Dexy, but Kayvon Thibodeau is another guy up there that you've speculated on him possibly getting dispatched elsewhere. Do you think that's still going to happen? Possibly this
Well,
season? Trade
I
deadline?
think I think Kayvon Thibodeau is poised for a huge year because win, lose, or draw, he's up for a contract after this year.
Yeah.
So whether he's traded or not, you know, I think that's less likely after the loss of Lawrence, even though they don't play the same position. I think subtracting more from that defensive line. Yes, they brought in DJ Reader and Shelby Harris to kind of, you know, to kind of make up for the loss. But I don't think Kayvon gets traded. I think he's going to have a big year because it's like a lot of players. This is a money year.
Mhm.
This means a huge This might mean a huge contract for him next year, or a not as huge contract for him next year. So I
Mhm.
think Kayvon actually comes out and, along with a loaded defensive line, two really good middle linebackers in Arvell Reese and Tremaine Edwards. Their front seven is
Tremaine,
scary.
I apologize. It's Tremaine Edmonds. My mistake. Tremaine Edmonds is his
Yep.
name, not Edmonds. So
And
I'm
Arvell
thinking
Reese
Tremaine
will
Edmonds.
will begin his career as an off-ball linebacker.
Yes.
In that 3-4 defense. Him and Edmonds will be in the middle, which I think is intimidating for a lot of teams. If you're a quarterback and you're trying to run on them, you have your work cut out for you. So I'm really excited to see what this defense can do under Denard Wilson and John Harbaugh.
Yeah, they got good linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, Arvell Reese, along with Abdul Carter. What do you expect from him in year number 2 coming out of?
Massive leap,
Yeah,
massive leap.
I would agree.
He's so
I would
talented.
agree with that,
I
especially.
think I think I think Abdul Carter is going to be a menace this year, like a menace. And
Especially with DJ Reader right beside him. So DJ Reader is going to stuff a lot of running lanes against the
Him and
Brooklyn.
Shelby Harris.
That's
Yep.
going to free up. That's going to free up the Brian Birds and Abdel Carters of the world even more with what DJ Reader is going to do in the middle of that defensive line.
It gives them the flexibility to run, Tom Coughlin's old NASCAR package, like they used to run with Tuck and Umanura and Strahan. When you have guys like Carter and you can and Burns and Reese and Thibodeau, you can do a lot of damage on passing downs with those four. So I think the front seven of the Giants is fearsome.
It very well could be. Let's go through some of the more individual storylines aside from, trade. Well, actually, from in terms of, and I should look. I know there were more.
Well, before we go there, let's look at the flip side. Which retread head coach do you think is going to struggle?
It's a good idea. That is a very good question. Who are we talking about here? We're talking about McCarthy. We're talking about Harbaugh. We're talking about Saleh. We're talking about Stefanski.
Even though I said that he might have the most success, I think Kevin Stefanski has the most room for failure too.
He does.
Are we sold on Michael Penix?
I was thinking
are we sold on him?
I mean, well, I like Stefanski as a head coach, but
what about his quarterback?
How good is the roster that he got, and specifically the quarterback? I mean, Tua Tagovailoa is down there. You got Michael Penix Jr. You hope Michael Penix Jr. is a starter and Tua can be your backup. That would be a very ideal situation for Atlanta because Tua's got experience, and if he's a backup, he's not going to play as many snaps, and obviously that will reduce his chances of getting injured. So you'd like to have Michael Penix Jr. beating out Tua Tagovailoa for the starting job in Atlanta, but obviously they have great receivers, Kyle Pitts and London, and the defense also always a question mark in Atlanta. So yeah, I think it might be Kevin Stefanski. If it's not Kevin Stefanski, I would say Robert Saleh in Tennessee, but I'm going to go with Kevin Stefanski, even though the division looks weak on paper coming in, but I think it's Stefanski because the quarterback situation's in a little bit of flux. I don't know how good the defense is. The division's wide open, but let's not sleep on Carolina.
Carolina
last year.
And who is Shuck going to take that step forward this year
for New Orleans this year as well? What's that?
What happens if Shuck takes a big step forward this year?
He might. I like Shuck down in New Orleans. I like the Kellen Moore Shuck combination down there in New Orleans. Decent defensively, and they were a little bit of a giant killer last year, along with Carolina beating the Rams at one point in the middle of the season. So I think I don't like Tampa losing Mike Evans. Well, I love him losing him to my 49ers, of course, but looking at it from a non-biased point of view, that's going to hurt Tampa losing Mike Evans.
Of course.
Godwin is always injured, and Mike Evans was Mr. Consistency for Tampa. So we'll see what kind of impact it has on their offense, which in turn might impact a good defense that Tampa already has, but they have a good defense in Carolina. I don't know about Atlanta. We'll see how good their defense is. And the defense isn't bad down in New Orleans either, despite everything. So the NFC South as a whole, even though
it's wide open.
It's wide open.
You probably have to favor Carolina.
Yeah. So I'll go with Stefanski, followed by Saleh as far as the coaches amongst retread head coaches. They're going to struggle the most with a slight nod to Stefanski.
On the coaching front, we talked about how there were 10 openings this year. Give me 2 or 3 coaches that you think whose seat is already warm going into the season. They better show up and win. I have a few in my mind. What head coaches? You cannot say the head coach of the New York Jets. Let's just take him out.
Why not?
Take him out. Let's think a little harder about that. That's an easy
New York
answer.
Jets not a National Football League team, huh?
They are, but
Eric
that's a layup. We're not doing any bunnies here. Take Aaron Glenn out of the equation.
Damn qualifiers. You know that?
No. Let's think a little harder about this. Let's remove Aaron Glenn because you got to figure Aaron Glenn is a known commodity. Everybody who's a football fan knows his seat is very warm. Very deserved or undeserved, his seat is very warm this year. Yeah, We'll see what him and Frank Reich can do.
He doesn't have
Uh,
a quarterback over there. I mean,
well, and Geno Smith's been pulled over 147 times down in Broward County, Florida. He can't keep himself out of the news. I mean, he's turned right back into the New York Jets, Geno Smith, since he's gotten back. He can't keep himself out of the damn headlines.
That's
So already,
a year in Vegas. So
So let's take Aaron Glenn out of it. Let's deeper dive a little bit into some other coaches.
Las Vegas from the Living Room podcast, host and creator. So
let's dig a little deeper into other coaches whose seat might be warm. Let's take the first year coaches out of it. You got to figure most NFL teams who are worth their salt wouldn't fire a first year head coach. You said Saleh and all that stuff. Saleh's going to be given a lot of leeway because they know what they were building there in Tennessee. So let's assume all first year head coaches are fine. And let's take Aaron Glenn out of the equation. We all know the situation with Aaron Glenn. Any coaches leap to mind? I have a few that I can name.
Yeah, well, the first one that comes to my mind is Matt LaFleur with the Green Bay Packers.
Good.
This is a team that can't seem to get a certain point in the playoffs. Kind of like the Cowboys haven't win to an NFC Championship game and God knows how long since we were in college.
1995,
maybe? And the Green Bay Packers can't seem to get to the divisional round these days. They're like 1-out in the playoffs, and you got Jordan Love in his prime, and you acquire Micah Parsons last season from the Cowboys, and it looks like you have a decent defense. And Micah Parsons is healthy. Of course, he won't be back until October, so we'll see. It's a good thing. We talked about this on a previous pod that Green Bay's schedule is fairly easy early, so they can tread water until Parsons gets back. But right off the bat, I got to say Matt LaFleur with the Green Bay Packers, based on they can't get past, the ceiling, the glass ceiling that they run into once they get into the playoffs.
I think you're right with Matt LaFleur. I mean, I'm going to go in a different direction, but look, Matt LaFleur's had chances. Matt LaFleur survived this past offseason by the skin of his teeth. By the skin of his teeth.
Rivals.
Not only that, he lost a terrible playoff game against his arch rival.
Right.
He was clowned by his arch rival in the Chicago Bears. I think LaFleur is an excellent choice, and I think his seat is already warm. You're right. There's expectations on that team to go farther and to not blow lead. They blew not one but two leads, big leads to Chicago last year. The last time they played.
You could say not having Parsons available could have something to do with that. So you got to see what the defense looks like once Parsons comes back. But how much difference can Parsons make ultimately? We're going to find out.
I think his seat is warm, and don't think somebody like Sean McDermott wouldn't have his eyes on Green Bay.
There's a few head coaches I'm sure would love to land in Green Bay.
Right. So I mean, he's probably
Ed Policy, who's related to an old friend of mine, Carmen Policy from the 49ers. So the Policy family.
Right. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm not sure whether I want to go to Cincinnati or Minnesota, but I'm going to go to Minnesota.
Kevin O'Connell.
I think Kevin O'Connell's seat is a little bit warm. You have arguably the best wide receiver in the league, and you're not winning playoff games. You got to the playoffs a couple of years ago. You got bounced by the Giants at home. I think his seat is warm. I think they need to make a step forward this year. They do have talent on that Minnesota Vikings squad. They need to be better. I almost went with Cincinnati with Zach Taylor because I think his seat is also warm. But I'll go with O'Connell down in aren't they both Rams tree guys? O'Connell and Taylor. I know Taylor is. Aren't they both from the Rams?
Yes, they both came from the Sean McVay coaching tree. Of course, Zach Taylor went to a Super Bowl against the Rams 5 years ago. And Kevin O'Connell hasn't gotten there and is widely considered a quarterback whisperer. But Minnesota fired their general manager over, obviously what happened with Sam Darnold with the Seahawks. So, when you bring in a new general manager, might want to bring in his own guys. So, yes, I think Kevin O'Connell is a legitimate pick. And what's funny about Cincinnati is that even though Zach Taylor should be on the hot seat, Cincinnati's fairly patient with their coaches. You remember Marvin Lewis, how long he lasted there, despite the fact he
Yep.
never got out of the first round of the wild card round of the playoffs, or maybe once. I don't know how many ones they had. I think one time they won the playoffs under Marvin Lewis. So they're fairly patient with their head coaches, but that
Well,
may
they're
not be the
cheap.
case in Minnesota with a new general manager. So I would agree with you about Kevin O'Connell. It's a fairly decent pick there.
Yep. Yep. So that would be my choice is Minnesota, and that's not that's not a fun division to try to do it in. You got to figure Detroit's gonna be better this year than they were last year. Chicago's still gonna be the Bears. Year 3 for Caleb Williams. So you really got to figure that, and Green Bay, we already talked about Green Bay, but they're going to be a desperate football team too. They know what they're up against in that division. So the Vikings have an uphill battle to compete in that division. Might be the best division in football, maybe top to bottom, because they don't have an Arizona like your division has.
Well, no. And Arizona has a new head coach, the other LaFleur coming
Yep.
from the Rams, Mike LaFleur going over to the Cardinals. Obviously, they're not going to get rid of him after year one. And I don't think any head coach, you can keep an eye on Kyle Shanahan with the Niners, obviously, but his contract doesn't expire until after 2027. I'm pretty sure Jed York, the owner, has no appetite to get rid of Shanahan, at least before his current contract expires. After next season, Sean McVay, very safe with the Rams, and obviously Mike McDonald
Well,
just
Sean McVay leaves. It's going to be
with
because
the
Sean McVay
Seahawks.
wants.
So yeah, I don't think there's any head coach in the NFC West.
Mike McDonald won't be leaving. In
No,
Seattle.
not anytime soon. Yeah.
So I don't even think San Francisco is warm. I mean, who are
No,
you going to
I
get
would
better
agree.
than?
I would agree.
You know,
I think it's a situation to watch.
you
That
know.
said, I don't think York's going to get rid.
If you're gonna, I mean, hypothetically, if you get rid of Shanahan, who are you bringing in? A newbie?
That's a good question.
A newbie?
We'll
Do you,
see.
do,
We'll
do,
see.
do, do, do you
Who
get?
we'll see who the hot up and comer. Talking about a place where a established head coach might want to get his hands on a team. The Niners could be one of those teams as well, like Green Bay. But
Let,
yeah,
let me ask you this. Let me give you a hypothetical.
I firmly believe that Shannon is not going nowhere. Is not going
Well,
anywhere for at
let's
least the
do a
next 2 seasons.
hypothetical.
So.
Let's suppose they let Shanahan go, and let's suppose he wants to come back to coaching. Who would you rather have on the Niners sideline long term, Shanahan or Mike Tomlin? Now it's rumored that Mike Tomlin doesn't even want to come back to coaching, so that's maybe pie in the sky. But if you had that choice, Tomlin would agree to come to San Francisco if you fired Shanahan, not Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan. Who would you want as a Niners fan, Tomlin or Shanahan?
I'd have to go with Shanahan.
I would too.
I think he's more inventive offensively. I think defensively they've been really good under Shanahan. He's had a number of good coordinators, some of them becoming head coaches, like Robert Saleh on a couple of different occasions. And what's his name down in Houston? I can't believe I'm forgetting.
Linebacker. My God, what the hell? D'Amico Ryans.
D'Amico Ryans, thank you. D'Amico Ryans down in Houston, and obviously bringing in the former Atlanta coach, former Rams defensive coordinator. Not Raheem Mostert. I kept thinking Raheem Mostert.
Raheem Morris?
Raheem Morris, thank you. Raheem Morris. There you go. I was on the right track. I can think about Mostert, the old 49ers running back. But yeah, I don't think Shanahan's going anywhere. But if it was Shanahan or Tomlin, I go with Shanahan.
I would too.
Because of the offensive ingenuity and the fact that he has had very good defensive coordinators for the most part.
I don't think Tomlin's coming back anyway. But
yeah, I would agree with that. Let me ask you about this. Coming out of the NFC East, talking about a head coach that could be on the hot seat, and maybe more so than some of the other coaches that we named. Dan Quinn with the Washington Commanders. What do you think his status is coming into this season?
It can be argued that Dan Quinn, well, not argued, I understand they had injuries last year. They were old last year. They got a little bit younger, but they still have an older team. They do have a lot of wide receivers. It's going to be on the arm of Jaden Daniels. It really is. They can't be in the basement of the NFC East this year, or Dan Quinn, especially with a younger quarterback moving into a new stadium eventually. They went to an NFC Championship game his first year. Well, the Giants, went to the divisional round in Brian Daboll's first year. So I mean, it does happen. I think you're right. I think Quinn's seat could start getting hot in Washington. Jaden Daniels, I know he was hurt last year for some of the year. He didn't play that well when he wasn't. I don't know if he was fully healthy or ready to be back, but Washington needs a bounce back year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But of course, Jaden Daniels, his health is going to rest upon that. They didn't have him for a lot of last year. He's got to protect himself, and hopefully, kind of like Cameron Carr with the Lakers, is adding a little bit of muscle mass so that he can better take hits or better tolerate the hit that he's going.
Jackson Dart is in that same category, but Jackson Dart's bigger.
Well, I think Jackson Dart is more defined. I think he's much stronger, much more muscular than Jaden Daniels is. But yeah, kind of the same style, although maybe Jackson Dart's a little bit more reckless than Jaden Daniels is. But I think Jaden Daniels absolutely needed to add some muscle mass to his frame to better protect himself when he gets hit. But with Jackson Dart, it's just a matter of smarts. Physically, I think he can take it more so than Jaden Daniels can. But obviously, you don't want him to play like a bowling ball. You want him to play more like a quarterback and let other people take the hits more often than he does.
Yep.
So that'll be a situation to watch. Let's go into the AFC teams and NFC teams that will take a big step forward and a big step back. On the AFC side, which team do you think will take a big step forward?
For the AFC, this might surprise you. I'm going to go with. Do I go with the Cincinnati Bengals, which was my first thing, or there's another AFC team, and it would shock you, who I think. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. You have to figure that, their offense is going to still be elite. I think their head coach is very much on the hot seat. I think their defense, judging from where it started from, it has to be better. Whether you believe in Dexter Lawrence or not, they also added Jonathan Allen to that mix. I think they're going to be better in Cincinnati. I think it's a winnable division, save Baltimore. I'm going to go with Cincinnati taking the biggest step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Burrow plays the whole season. The offense is still elite. The defense is better. And they don't need the defense to be top 10. They need the defense to be top 16, 17, 18 in the league for them to be a really dangerous team. So I'll go with the Cincinnati Bengals. It would shock you as to the other team I almost went with, but go ahead.
Well, which team was that?
That I thought the New York Jets.
Mm-hmm.
They were so inept and so bad, and they do have talent. They do have talent over there in Florham Park. Make no mistake about it. But I don't know whether they have a quarterback, but they definitely have a professional with Frank Reich running that offense. I think they have to be better. I mean, not only weren't they any good last, they weren't competitive in many games. So I think just from the eye test alone, take wins and losses out of it, I think the Jets could win 6 or 7 games this year, just on talent alone. If Geno gets his head on straight,
that would be a successful year for the Jets.
It really would.
How many straight seasons have the Jets not been in the playoffs? What is it, 14 coming into this year?
14
it's the longest active streak.
They have the longest streak in the NFL.
In the NFL currently.
They have I got to, I mean, I'll take Cincinnati just because their upside is so much bigger. But I think the Jets can only go one way. And sometimes I think just talent. They do have talent on that team. They overhauled their defense. They've got really nice tight ends. They've got a good running back in Breece Hall. They've got good wide receivers with Garrett Wilson. I think the Jets could be the surprise in terms of how competitive they are this year.
Well, the team that I have in the AFC taking a big step forward was in the playoffs last year. They didn't win their division, but I'm going to go with the Houston Texans.
Okay.
I know CJ Stroud struggled last year. A big part of that was the offensive line was Houston was not up to snuff. They did bring in Wyatt Teller as a guard on a 2-year contract. They brought in Braden Smith as an offensive tackle. They brought in Evan Brown for some offensive line depth. So I think the offensive line will be better. And let's not forget, CJ Stroud had an outstanding rookie year, maybe the best rookie year the quarterback has ever had statistically, and has had him in the playoffs each season. And you talk about players, that have incentive to play their best. It's a contract year for CJ Stroud, so he's
Yep.
going to want to take advantage of that. And the offensive line being upgraded by the Texans in the offseason should help with that, along with Tank Dell coming back, a wide receiver, Nico Collins. You hope he's healthy. He's one of the fastest wide receivers in the league, is really, really good. And of course, the defense with the Texans is the best in football right now, with Danielle Hunter, with Will Anderson, with Derek Stingley, with Kamari Lassiter, and everybody. They added Dominique Robinson in free agency to bolster the defensive end position, and Logan Hall as well. So defensively they're going to be loaded. I think it's the best defensive unit in football right now. They can cover, but they can get to the quarterback with Will Anderson and with Danielle Hunter and company, and of course Al-Shaair, former linebacker for the 49ers, also anchoring in the middle. He's a ferocious linebacker for them. So they have the defense. It's just, can the offense take advantage of a defense? They're not going to have to score a lot. So if the offensive line improves, which it should with those additions that I named, CJ Stroud should have a better year. And the Texans, if that happens, I would expect to win the AFC South over Jacksonville. So the Texans are my pick to take a significant step forward this season.
Yep.
26.
And now we'll flip the script. We'll let you go first in the NFC. Which team takes the biggest, is poised for a big step forward this year?
I know the Giants would be the obvious pick, but I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm going with the Saints is that I like Shuck at quarterback. He has Olave. You add Travis Etienne, a running back from Jacksonville, combined with Alvin Kamara. That's a heck of a 1-2 punch at running back. And you drafted Talisi Fuaga in the draft, which is going to give Tyler Shuck even more protection, who's could throw the football, is more athletic than he's given credit for. Then on defense, Demario Davis, the linebacker. You had Kool-Aid McKinstry through the draft. Chase Young is coming in as an edge defender. Remember him with Washington, with the Niners? If he's healthy, he's an impact player. Obviously,
wasn't he the number 1 overall pick?
Huh?
Wasn't he a number 1 overall pick, Chase Young?
I think it was number 2 out of Ohio State the year he came out with the Commanders. So I think it was number 2 that year. Kind of like when, for what, 4 straight years or 3 straight years, a defensive end from Ohio State was drafted number 2 overall. You got the Bosa brothers, and then Chase Young was part of that. But I think he was number 2 overall coming out of Ohio State to the Commanders when he came in. But he was up there. But he's an established pass rusher, could help them. Cameron Jordan, I think, retired, so that kind of hurts. One of the all-time great Saints. He'll be a Hall of Famer, I would imagine. Then you have Jonas Sanker as well. But I think what the Saints did very quietly was bolster the offense for Shuck. And it's a good defense down there already that you have guys like Davis, McKinstry, and Young to help out with. So I love what New Orleans has done this offseason very, very quietly. And I think they're poised for a significant jump in 2026. What about you?
That's a winnable division. They play in a very winnable division.
Mm-hmm.
So
what about you? Are you going to go with the obvious? Because you can make a case for your team, but
I think many, I think most NFL experts agree that the New York Giants are poised to make a big step forward this year. I happen to agree. We've touched on the Giants already, so I'm not going to go with them. This might surprise you. I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys.
I actually would agree.
I think their offense fully healthy is just as good as any offense in the NFL. It really is. They're going to be able to light up the scoreboard on a weekly basis. I think they've made improvements to their defense, which is really what held them back last year. I think they've got a weapon in their kicker. What's his name? Aubrey. Um,
Brandon Aubrey. Yeah.
so I think I think he could be a game changer in a tight game. Actually, I know he kicked a 62 or 63 yarder to beat my Giants in Dallas last year. Um, so I think Dallas is poised to be better than they were. They have the offense. Can their defense play well enough to not force them to score 35 points a game? So, and I think the answer might be yes. I think Dallas, the Giants are an obvious pick, so we'll leave them out. But I think Dallas is poised for a step forward.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It's you draft Malachi Lawrence as a pass rusher, and you got Kenny Clark over there, and of course their big pick Caleb Downs is going to have an immediate impact on that secondary. So Quinn Williams, who I think they traded for the Jets actually, so that's
They
a nice
did.
addition. Rashawn Gary, who you got in the Micah Parsons trade, so
Yep.
they have the players. They did trade Digizua to my 49ers, which I appreciate. Who's going to bolster the Niners' defensive line, especially in the run game or against
Yep.
the game for opposing teams. So, but other than that, I think they have the talent. It's just Dak's got to stay healthy, and the defense has got to get better. Get a low bar for the defense to get better. That's been a bugaboo for the Cowboys for a couple of years now. So, but with their acquisitions by way of trade and draft and free agency, adding guys like Quinn Williams, Malachi Lawrence, Caleb Downs, and company, you're looking at a defense that should be much improved. Amongst the Giants or the Cowboys, though, I think they're going to be one of those teams to win the NFC East. Who do you think that might be? We'll make our official picks for the division as the season gets closer. But between those two teams, who do you think has a better chance of winning the NFC East coming into this season?
I think the Giants take a bigger step forward. I think Dallas has more of a ready offense to win the division. I think, if they get into a shootout, I think Dallas is much better prepared. I think the Giants have some nice pieces. But the Cowboys have more ways to beat you than the Giants as currently constructed. So I will go with the Cowboys. I think the Giants make the playoffs. I think they're a playoff team. I think they win 10 games this year. But I think the Cowboys have the chance to win 12.
Fair enough. Let's go to the other side. The AFC NFC team we think will take a big step back. And the AFC, who is that team?
Wow, I can go in a bunch of different directions. One of the teams I was thinking of, and I won't do it. He's not here to defend them. Jacksonville, I think, is poised for a step back. And I don't like to say that because I like Liam Cohen for obvious reasons. He's a UMass guy. And you know how we feel about Marvin. So I think Jacksonville is one of them. I'm not going to say them. I'm going to say the Denver Broncos. Take a step back. Last year, they did a lot of winning one-score games with late fourth quarter stuff. That's not a sustainable
Minnesota
recipe.
Vikings from a couple of years ago, winning
Not sustainable.
one score
Not
game.
sustainable.
Or the Giants from a few years back.
I'm not sold on Bo Nix as a great quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know if he's great. I don't know that there's not a fracture in the relationship between Nix and Peyton out there. There's been some minor back and forth between the quarterback and the coach in terms of his readiness and his injury and just overall. I'm not sure they're on the same page. They still have a very good defense, but I'm not sold on the Denver Broncos offense. I think they, like Chicago, won a lot of games late last year. Pulling the rabbit out of the hat is not a recipe for long-term success. So I will say the Denver Broncos recede this year.
Interesting. For me, the team I would choose for a significant regression this season is the defending AFC champs, the New England Patriots.
They were on my list as well.
I think Mike Vrabel, the situation with Mike Vrabel might be a little bit awkward at times in terms of answering questions every time you go on the road. you add A.J. Brown as a heck of a receiver, but also a guy that you're going to have to keep happy, and you're going to have
Yep.
to feed him the ball. I mean, he should get a lot of attempts. He's the best receiver on the roster. That being said, you got to keep him happy, and Drake May should take a step forward. The offensive line on the left side for the Patriots is still a question mark for me with Campbell.
Oh yeah.
So that's something we have to see about, because ultimately, if the offensive line doesn't improve with a more difficult schedule that the Patriots are going to have, you're looking at a situation where regression is fairly easy to predict. So I'll say the New England Patriots, not that they're not going to make the playoffs. I think they should. That said, I'm not sure it's going to be going back to the Super Bowl and winning it. That's what I mean by a significant step back. So my pick is the New England Patriots.
And have we already seen the best of Drake May? Is Drake May going to get better?
Yeah, I think he can get better. Absolutely. Or maintain consistency. Nothing else. He's a guy I liked out of that draft. He wasn't getting a whole lot of shouts from people. People thought it was a project. Look what he did last year with a poor offensive line. Think about Joe Burrow in his first couple of years with Cincinnati behind a poor offensive line. Drake May can absolutely get better. He was pretty good last year despite everything. So, yeah, can he get better? He absolutely can. He was an MVP candidate last year, keep in mind, behind a poor offensive line. So if the offensive line gets better, then he's going to get better. But I think he's a heck of a quarterback, and I've been high on him from day one, to be honest with you. What about you?
Okay. I don't know. Did we see the best of Drake May last year? I don't know. Look, schedule plays a factor.
It does.
Even and you can't only say that, and if you don't believe that, look at their playoff run. I understand they got to the Super Bowl. They didn't score, and who did they beat? They beat a Chargers team who, had no offensive line, and they did typical LA Chargers stuff in the playoffs that they usually do. Good defense, but not a lot going on other than that. Herbert needs a bounce back year. Maybe with Mike McDaniel out there, he'll get that finally. Then they beat Houston, who had no wide receivers, a quarterback who couldn't seem to throw to the right team, and just a defense. Again, the Patriots won that game. I understand Houston's defense was the best in the league. They sure as hell didn't look very good doing it. They barely scraped by a Denver team whose offense wasn't that prolific in the first place, and they were playing with a backup quarterback. Yes, they won in Denver in the snow, but their offense did nothing, essentially nothing, against Denver. They did win the game. They did go to the Super Bowl, and we all know what happened there. Their offense did nothing. They got humiliated and embarrassed and blown out by the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm looking to see, like you pointed out about New England, how much of their success was due to their schedule and how much they've really improved. I have major, like yourself, I have major offensive line questions about the New England Patriots, starting with their left tackle, what's his name, Will Campbell?
Yes. Number 4 pick in the draft a couple years ago.
Major questions about the New England offensive line.
The alligator arms.
Major offensive questions about the offensive line.
Yeah. We shall see. But for me in the NFC, I think a team that's poised to take a significant step back is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep.
They've won the division 2 straight years. The first team in 20 years to win the NFC East in back-to-back years. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think the Cowboys or the Giants are going to vie for the NFC East crown this season. So you trade away A.J. Brown. So theoretically, the locker room should be more harmonious. With Brown gone, you drop a Kai Lemon, which I liked at number 20. But this season is all about Saquon Barkley. Can he be healthy in the Saquon Barkley that they were a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl? Or is he going to get hurt again? Because obviously that's the only weakness in Saquon Barkley's game is availability. Otherwise, when he's on the field, he's a home run hitter potentially every time he touches the ball. So it's all about Saquon Barkley getting the offense back to where it was a couple of years ago. And obviously Nick Sirianni, always subject of termination talk, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yep.
The Eagles will move.
He's on the hot seat too.
Even if they won a Super Bowl, Doug Peterson, you remember what happened to him? And Nick Sirianni's got to be in the same position. So we will see what they can cook up with another new offensive coordinator in Sean Mannion. And obviously the relationship between he and Jalen Hurts is going to matter.
That's just it. Do we believe in Jalen Hurts?
Is a little bit mercurial, even though he's a very good big game quarterback, but a little bit mercurial, a little bit unpredictable. You don't really know what he's thinking. But A.J. Brown being out of there should help. But I think the Eagles are poised to take a significant step back this upcoming season.
I don't disagree. I don't know that their offensive line is what it used to be. Even their best. No, they're not. I think Lane Johnson is back this year, but that's about it. I think Lane Johnson is on his way to retirement.
Well, you have what's Cam Jurgens in the middle. What's his health stat? He's pretty good at center, but he's got.
I have questions about the Eagles' offensive line continuing to play at the level that they're accustomed to. That being said, that poses risks for Barkley. Barkley had a monster first season, won a Super Bowl. Good for him. Last year was not nearly as good. They're on yet another offensive coordinator. But if I had to pick a team to step significantly backwards to the point where their head coach, and we didn't bring him up, is clearly on the hot seat, that's down in Tampa Bay, Florida. They lost major offensive weapons, most notably Mike Evans.
Todd Bowles.
Talent, they lost pieces on defense. Todd Bowles, I think, is coaching for his life down there, for his head coaching life right now in Tampa. Baker Mayfield can only do so much for you. He's a good quarterback. I wouldn't call Baker a great quarterback by any stretch.
Hey, he's steadily gotten better as he's going along. Actually, you got to get everyone.
I still wouldn't call him a great. I call him a good quarterback.
But he's exceeded expectations. Actually,
he is a good quarter. He's turned himself into a good
quarterback. What does he do without Mike Evans in the offense? And you hope Chris Godwin is healthy for an entire season, at least from a receiving corps standpoint.
But, and their offensive lines, and Tristan Wirfs and company, are going to have to stay healthy for the entire year to give them any shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Tampa Bay might finish last in that division.
A good exercise we should do before the season begins is that every year there's 6 or 7 coaches that are going to be dispatched, right? Every year it happens.
Yep.
This past offseason was an anomaly. I'm not sure we're going to have an offseason where 10 head coaches are dispatched.
Well, I think Harbaugh and Tomlin threw a monkey wrench and all that. Nobody really everybody knew it was possible. Nobody expected them both to be out the door in the same within 3 weeks of each other.
Yeah, Tomlin, that's a bombshell right there. But an exercise I'd like to do in a future pod is a 6-pack of head coaches we think will lose their job on Black Monday after the season ends. So we'll say
we already gave you 2 of them. So, but right. Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, that would be a lot. Well, I don't like talking about people getting losing their jobs, but it's part of the NFL.
It's a results business.
We might as well lean into it and just do a 6-pack of head coaches that
Tom Thibodeau didn't think he was going to lose his job, and look what happened.
Yep, exactly. But that's James Dolan for you.
Well, it's a results business. So
let's go. Every business is a results business. Show me a business it's not a results business, and I'll show you a business it's not a business. But I digress. Let's go team by team, starting with the AFC East. And the question that they must answer this upcoming season, we'll start the AFC East. We'll start with the defending champion New England Patriots. What's the question you believe has to be asked about them related to what you wanted to say about the Patriots when you mentioned it earlier?
I think the Patriots still have a very good defense. I think they rode their defense to the Super Bowl last year because their offense certainly didn't do much. They had an easy schedule. I think you and I both touched on it. The big question for the Patriots this year is their offensive line play. It was heavily exposed. And if you don't think every other team saw that Super Bowl and saw the left side of that line and how they played and will be attacking it mercilessly week after week, whether they scheme their way out of it or whether Campbell, and I forget the left guard's name, he's young too, it escapes my memory right now. That left side of the line specifically, but as a whole, that offensive line needs to take a massive step forward. That is a glaring question mark. if you're going to have a question mark on a team, either your offensive line or your defensive line is not where you want to have that question mark. And their defensive line's fine. Their offensive line is a glaring question mark. Can they get requisite offensive line play to win 10, 11 games this year? I'm not sure they can.
The left guard for the Patriots is projected to be Elijah Vera Tucker, who's been around a little bit.
Who's been hurt. Okay. So what did they kick the other guy to right guard?
He's decent. Yeah. Then you have I'm not sure who their right guard is, but it's Elijah Vera Tucker that is slotted in there to play along.
Well, and we'll see how healthy.
If he's healthy, that's a very good acquisition for the Patriots. That theoretically could work because his experience has been around and brings some veteran leadership to that line.
One of your beloved Trojans.
Yeah, that's true. I'd rather forget about that part of it. But yes, thank you for reminding me of.
I'm here to help.
Elijah Vera Tucker. What a great
beloved
name.
Trojan, much like Malachi Lemon, who you mentioned earlier.
Oh, jeez. Eagles going from ugly Trojan red to ugly Kelly Green with the Philadelphia Eagles. Way to go, Malachi Lemon. And, it's all anyway, the choice.
I'm surprised he was drafted by the Eagles. He didn't play for Georgia.
Well, no. They only draft defensive players from Georgia. Why would you draft an offensive player from Georgia? Okay, like they only do defense. So they get their offense from USC and they get their defense from Georgia. That's even I'd have to say that's not bad.
Yeah.
But,
speaking of Georgia, real quick, I don't want to get
Georgia's only good for one thing, but I digress.
Do you think Carson Beck, speaking of Georgia, even though I know it was a hurricane most recently, you think Carson Beck is the day one starter out there in the desert?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
But by the way, we're talking about Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the team. He's the one Carson Beck plays for.
Is Jacoby Brissett still holding out for a contract?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think so.
That would be okay. You've got storylines we take seriously. This one I am just laughing at. Jacoby Brissett, a career backup. Now, mind you, if you're going to do that with the Cardinals in their current situation. But still, it's Jacoby Brissett holding out for a contract. Like I'm the best.
That's Arizona for you.
Carson Beck may not be bad. I mean, let's face it, he's a winner.
Well, they do have Jeremiah Love.
He's got talent. The only question about Carson Beck is he more Kyler Murray in terms of not completely focused on football than he is, say, Aaron Rodgers? But if he's focused on football, not a bad option for the Cardinals this upcoming season, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and he's got Love behind him, so Right. And we'll see if he can get anything out of Marvin Harrison Jr.
They'll get the best out of Marvin Harrison Jr. You think his father, would talk to him about, hey, dude, you're embarrassing the family name with your receiver play so far. You got to step it up like you saw me do with the Colts so many years. So,
but anyway, back to the subject. The AFC East.
New England. For me, the question they have to answer is, can they win the AFC East again this season? Because if they do, it's a very, very good sign, given they'll have a first-place schedule throughout the season. So can they defend the AFC East title? Which brings us to the team that's going to probably challenge them for the AFC East title, the Buffalo Bills. What is the question they have to answer this season?
Better wide receiver play. I think they will get that because I think that, Brady is more of an offensive coach. McDermott was not. But I think they will get that. The question I have for the Buffalo Bills, can Josh Allen, and when we get to the Ravens, we can say the same thing about their quarterback. Can Josh Allen step up in big games? Because we certainly haven't seen it yet. The Buffalo Bills will be a playoff team, whether they win the division or come in second. I think they're a 10-win team, at least, just on talent alone. They're going into a new stadium this year. I think Highmark Stadium is complete out there in Orchard Park. Do they have enough on defense, especially in the back end? And can Josh Allen step up in big games? Because every year in the playoffs, it's the same thing. You get what you get from Josh Allen.
I would argue that Josh Allen has stepped up in the playoffs more so than Lamar Jackson. I think Josh Allen has been a better player performer than Lamar Jackson is, to be honest with you. You'll recall that game against Kansas City a few years ago
Yep.
that Buffalo should have
Yeah,
won
that was the defense. I get it.
until the defense, 13 seconds is all they needed. So I think Josh Allen has had some reasonable playoff performances, but who is around him? I mean, I like James Cook at running back, a former 49er, and the brother of Dalvin Cook, and he's gone on to a better career as James Cooks than his brother Dalvin. But the wide receiver play. To me, it's can Joe Brady, and they averaged 28 points a game last year, but it's with Josh Allen doing so darn much. I mean, he's their James Cook is their best rusher, but Josh Allen does so much on his own. So you need your wide receivers. So can Joe Brady get the offense to the point where they could still score 28 points a game, but rely on Josh Allen less? That would be the question that I have.
Yep.
All right. Let's
All
see.
right. Which tire fire do you want to go to?
They were seventh in defense last year as well, and yet they didn't win the division. So that's interesting. All right. So let us go to in the AFC East.
Yeah, Miami or the Jets?
The Miami Dolphins. We'll start with them.
I think the
What's
Miami
the question
Dolphins,
they have to answer this season?
can they get any skill position play on offense? I don't love their wide receivers. I certainly don't. Their quarterback, let's face it, he's a stopgap measure. That's what he is. He's a stopgap. Can they get something? Can they start building for something? Miami will probably have a new quarterback next year or the year after. I mean, we all know Malik Willis is there for a bridge. He knows the terminology of Halfley, so it makes sense. But they need some skill position play in Miami. And can their defense finally start playing on the road? I mean, their defense has been so bad on the road for the past however many years. Can Miami turn that around and finally start playing some defense on the road? I think it's going to be a long season for Miami. I think they finished fourth in that division. I really do. You can't really blame Halfley or the Green Bay general manager they brought in. I forget his name. It's a rebuild, much like in Tennessee.
John Eric Sullivan.
Yeah. This is a rebuilding project in Miami.
Yeah.
So this is not what they field to start the year is not what they're going to look like in 2 years.
I came up with a catchphrase for the Dolphins. It might sound corny, it might not. I'm going to try it on you. To ail for Arch or to not ail for Arch? As in, try to set yourself up to draft Arch Manning, #1 overall in the draft next season. Because
Manning or Moore or Sayan or any of these guys.
It could be any one of those guys, but
Trinidad Chambliss.
From a catchphrase standpoint, to ail for Arch or to not ail for Arch. Either way, that's the Dolphins. I think they want to win as few games as possible,
and I think they'll accomplish that.
Try to get their quarterback and try to secure their quarterback of the future next year in 2027 in the NFL draft. So, to take or not to take, basically.
Yeah.
Go from there. They don't have any skill position. I mean, except for Devon Achane, who's really, really good, who's a great sit back and one of the best running backs in football. Who do they have a wide receiver? Tutu Atwell and company. And, Jalen Waddle was gone. He went off to Denver, which will help Denver's offense a little bit with Bo Nix, despite what you said about Bo Nix earlier. And, of course, Tyreek Hill is no longer there either. So they are bare bones thin at wide receiver.
Where did Tyreek Hill go?
Huh?
Where is Tyreek Hill?
That is a very good question.
He's not back in Kansas City, is he?
No, I don't think so. Actually, I'm not sure. I'll look that up in a moment. Yeah. But that's a very, very good question. I know he's not in Miami. But let's go to the Jets. What is a question the Jets have to answer this season?
Do they have something in Cade Klubnik? I think at some point this year, Gino will only take them so far, and they need to see what they have with Cade Klubnik. He was projected to be a much higher pick than he ended up being. Clemson had a very disappointing year. Maybe not all of that was Klubnik's fault. I think Clemson's a team in transition. in this new college football world. But do they have something with Cade Klubnik? They do have draft picks next year, even if they don't get the number one overall pick. I think they have the draft picks to go get the quarterback they want, whether that's Arch. Wouldn't that be a hop in the ass to see a Manning playing in New York, but only for the other team? That's going to be weird if that happens. Or Julian Sayin or Dante Moore or who knows? I know he had a lot of trouble this year. What about Sorsby next year? He's going to get picked up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
adding to a deep quarterback draft already because the NFL decided not to put on a supplement draft for Brennan Sorsby.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with he had a gambling issue, and the NFL doesn't want that. So they're going to make him sit a while and think it over. So he's not going to play this year. The CFL has already ruled he cannot be drafted by any CFL team. So he's not going to play any kind of organized. Maybe he'll play
backyard football for him.
Maybe he'll play in the UFL, but he's not going to be playing football this year. I would say, the question they do have talent, as I've mentioned. Their head coach is clearly on the hot seat. I think Frank Reich is a good guy to have on offense, especially if you're going to develop a young quarterback like Klubnik. They need to know what they have. Do they want to roll with Klubnik going forward and maybe push, drafting a quarterback off? I wouldn't do that. If I were them, I would draft a quarterback anyway and let whoever that is and Klubnik fight it out. But Reich is the right guy, is one of the right guys to develop a quarterback. The development of Cade Klubnik and Geno keeping his Seattle persona as opposed to his former New York Jets persona and now his current New York Jets persona. I mean, don't forget, Geno Smith was knocked out in his own locker room the last time he was with the Jets. I don't think Geno's a long-term answer. I think he'll win them some games. But the development of Klubnik, if that's going to happen, what do you have in Cade Klubnik? That's the big question for the Jets.
I think the question for the Jets is, will Aaron Glenn survive long enough to be the head coach whoever the Jets draft next at quarterback?
No.
I think that's the direction that they're going in.
No, unless they're a 10-win team. I think
Johnson can exercise patience that he's not known for. You might be right, but to me, that's the question overall is that who's going to be the head coach of the Jets when they draft their next quarterbacks? I'm not sure Klubnik is going to be their guy. Would you consider
he might not be
draft next
year? But you got to see what you have.
No, you do. It's true. Like Miami, we'll see what they have with Malik Willis, but it's kind of the same situation between the Dolphins and the Jets. Let's go to Mancrush and Knucklehead of the week as we have about 10 minutes left in the pod. Who is your Mancrush and Knuckleheads of the week?
My Mancrush of the week, it would be nice if they did it in games that actually counted. Cody Bellinger and Ben Rice providing most of the offense for the American League in the All-Star game. Big hits for both guys. Like I said, it would be nice to see what they could do in actual games that counted, because it doesn't look like Judge is coming back anytime soon. So for the Yankees, so they're really going to have to step up, two of those guys, along with what they had with the trade deadline. Knucklehead of the week, I'm going to keep it right in Yankee land, is Brian Cashman and the Yankee front office. They need a lot at the trade deadline. They need a lot. They need a third baseman. They need a catcher. They need a shortstop. They arguably need a second baseman because Jazz Chisholm has fallen drastically out of favor in the Bronx. They need another bat. I don't think Tariq Skubal, as much as it would be nice to have him, I'd feel very comfortable rolling with a healthy Garrett Cole, Max Fried, and Cam Schlittler going into any playoff series, then throw in Rodon or throw in Schmidt, who's coming back from Tommy John, or Will Warren. How can you go into a season knowing Judge isn't getting any younger, knowing Cole isn't getting any younger, with a roster built the way the Yankees was built? Volpe's done nothing for 3+ years. Ryan McMahon is a good defensive third baseman. He can't hit worth a lick. Austin Wells has been a black hole.
They got traded from Colorado.
Yeah, they
The
traded for
ultimate
McMahon.
hitter-friendly ballpark, and he got traded from Colorado.
And well, he's a left. I don't know if they thought they'd catch lightning in a bottle because he's a left-handed hitter and the short porch in right field, but he doesn't play any offense. Um, the fact that the Yankees, even before Judge and Stanton went down, have so many holes in that lineup is dreadful. You can't go into prime Cole, prime Judge years, guys who are approaching the back nine eventually. Judge is going to be 35 years old. So Brian Cashman and maybe Hal, I don't know what kind of financial constraints. They have the third highest payroll in baseball. So it's not like Hal isn't spending money. They haven't spent it wisely.
Right.
Brian Cashman would be my knucklehead of the week because now he's got to trade half the damn farm system just to be able to come out of the American League, where they should be able to waltz through the American League because the American League's not that good. You're a man crushing knucklehead?
Yeah, my man crush of the week, going the soccer route, Jude Bellingham of Team England, mouthing off with Lionel Messi. He had a heck of a tournament, and he got into a little bit of a verbal spat with Lionel Messi that I found to be entertaining when I saw it on replay. A heck of a tournament with a heck of a personality. So Jude Bellingham is my man crush of the week, ironically enough, coming out of the soccer world. My knucklehead of the week, also coming out of the soccer world, the Yankees notwithstanding, I agree with everyone, but Thomas Tuchel. I look at this the manager of Team England. I look at this Argentina team, and they feel like the Chiefs in terms of the Chiefs are down by 7 or less with a minute to go. They're going to find a way to get the ball into the end zone. That's how Argentina feels. You go into a shell defense 30 minutes before that, and you are asking for trouble. You had to have at least a 2-goal lead, a 3-goal lead to go into a shell defense. Tuchel went into it too soon, and Argentina scored 2 goals 4 minutes apart in the parts of the game where it's the 80th minute, the 85th minute, the 89th minute, but in the 80th minutes range to win the game in regulation 2-1, or regulation plus stoppage time 2-1. When England should have won that game, but their manager Thomas Tuchel let them down by going to the shell defense too soon, and Argentina pulled the Kansas City Chiefs of yesteryear on Team England. So Thomas Tuchel is my knucklehead of the week. Final comments. You're
up. I'm really excited for football season. This week, or the end of this week, training camp begins in earnest for all involved. I'm looking forward to my New York Giants getting to West Virginia down at the Greenbrier. The first time they've held training camp away from Giant Stadium in probably a decade. They used to train up in Albany, but that no longer. They've trained in East Rutherford for the past, I want to say, better part of a decade. So I'm really looking forward to the John Harbaugh era beginning. Hope springs eternal with all NFL fans. Everybody's excited this time of year to see their new and improved football team, whether it's a new coach, new players, highly drafted players. This is a great time of year to be a football fan because everyone is excited to see their football team. Enjoy it.
Thank you, Jack. Well said. My final comments is I can't believe I'm about to defend the LA Chargers, but I'm going to try. I've heard a lot of fodder on talk radio this week about Justin Herbert this, Justin Herbert that. It's time for Justin Herbert to show us what he's got. Well, didn't he do that last season? Think about the Chargers. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, making up one of the best tackle combinations in football. You know what they both have in common last year?
They didn't play.
Missed a bunch of games and did not play. And yet the Chargers were an 11-win team that got into the playoffs. Yes, I know they didn't win it. I know Justin Herbert doesn't have a playoff win, but let me remind everybody that winning football games is not up to one player, even if that one player is a quarterback as good and as talented as Justin Herbert is. It's an entire team's responsibility. Low-hanging fruit with the lazy media, that's your problem. That's a you problem, as some in Sports Talk Radio might say. The bottom line is Justin Herbert showed you last year what he can do without 2 great starting offensive tackles, leading the Chargers to 11 wins at Jim Harbaugh 2. and leading them to 11 wins. And if their tackles are healthy this season, that's a big if, because we all know the Chargers can't seem to escape the injury bug. Maybe the season they could do. And if they do, I'm pretty sure the Chargers will get into the playoffs. They might win the AFC West. Who knows if the offensive line is healthy enough and the defense steps up. It's got a lot of talent down there, and they're well coached by Jim Harbaugh. And Justin Herbert is the real deal at quarterback. You can't put everything on him. But if you want him to show you something, check out what he did last season behind an offensive line missing two of the best tackles in football. And let's see what they do this season. But ultimately, winning is a team responsibility, not just on the player, even if that player is a quarterback. And with that, the living room is closed, and it's time to head out to the day. This has been the Living Room Podcast, a Die Hard Sports Radio production. For Jack Angelo, I'm Steve Itzkowitz, a.k.a. Speakeasy Steve. Check out the YouTube, youtube.com/Steve Itzkowitz, ITZKOWITZ, or at speak-easy-steve. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Living Room Podcast. Pull up a chair. Let's talk sports. Have a good day, everybody.